Hey guys and girls, good to see you again, friends. Today we're going to be talking about my Nikon Z system and some of the accessories that I've recently purchased. I've made some swaps and changes on equipment. I think it's only fair to update you on what choices I've made and why. I've got some anticipated buying as well coming up very soon, and I'd like to announce that and look forward to reviewing it all for you. Now initially what I'm going to be talking about today is the Nikon 70-200 2.8S lens. I have it right here in front of me. Now this is a very recent purchase. I've just acquired this only several weeks ago, and I've been trying it out on a few of my most latest video and photo shoots, predominantly using it for portraits, and of course I'll give you sample images through the show to illustrate just how it went. Now, in a general review, I'll just say that in my opinion it was quite a magnificent unit. I am extremely pleased with its performance and how it's going. It's snappy and fast with the focus. It's a beautiful thing to actually use in the hands, and I found it very sharp, quick focusing and accurate. And I've enjoyed the experience of using it. I don't think I could ever go back to the F lenses anymore adapted to the Z mount. I'm quite happy to just buy now the Z mount lenses, and that's really where I've gone, and that's the start of this story. You see, previously in a recent video I was illustrating my 200-400 f4 zoom. Big telephoto zoom, weighs half a ton in your imagination once you're holding it. It's probably about 3.5 kilos, but the thing is, it felt like half a dozen house bricks around your neck when you were carrying it along. And although the lens was beautifully sharp, it functioned extremely well, focused brilliantly, I got a lot of great shots with it. It was simply the weight factor that let me down. So I decided that what I'd do is I'd move on, I'd sell that lens, as good as it was. No qualms or no issues with that lens as far as its quality. If I had, for example, a D750 or D850 or D500 still, back in the DSLR situation, I'd definitely keep it. It would have been great. But for the purpose that I have now with all Z-mount and mirrorless equipment, I thought it only practical to go and get myself a zoom that was the Z-mount zoom. And as this is the only one they have at the moment that's a longer focal length, I thought it most practical to get this one. It is a staple in every cameraman's bag, a 70-200 2.8. It's very versatile. Obviously you can use it for a bit of sports action, you can use it for some wildlife, and of course you can use it for portraits. And that's predominantly what I use it for. Mostly it's portraits, but I use it as a backup for any landscape, sports action or videography. Now of course with the Z-mount factor it has, videography is of course completely silent and very accurate for gaining focus. And of course has a little display screen that I can just illustrate here. If you see the little display screen, once it's illuminated on the camera, you can actually see everything you're doing, and you can adjust it with your ring and option menu to be either for aperture or ISO or focal length or whatever you require, which is great. Now of course it's very clearly labeled here that it's a 70-200, and that's only a very short throw. So it's only a few degrees of turn before you're full on and full back. And I found that really cool too. That was a great feature, that it isn't too much of a throw of the zoom to go all the way in and all the way out. Excellent for gaining focus in video as well, if you just want to slowly zoom into a subject. So anyway, I've been enjoying the lens. I rarely use the lens hood. The lens hood of course comes with it. It has an interesting feature, the lens hood here. It has a little clip, and you can only take the hood off when you press the clip in, and it sort of makes it safe. It's like a little locking device, if you like. So I think that's a clever feature because it makes it very safe. So I just put the lens hood over because, quite frankly, I'll be honest with you, I never use it. Or when I say never, it'd be a rare opportunity that I'd need to use that. The reason being isn't because it doesn't function. It's simply because most of the photos I take are on purpose in the shade. So I'll choose a shady spot to film and then just add light as I require it. I have almost an infinite supply of LED lights and like 6-speed lights. So if I need lighting, that's not an issue. But the shade factor means I'm not worrying too much about things getting into the camera lens, so that doesn't really affect me. If I'm not shooting in a studio, I'm shooting in a shady area. So anyway, the lens hood comes with it, it's practical, and I like the locking feature, but quite frankly I don't need it much. What I do like about this lens here is I do like the fact that it has the collar. So the fact that you have an adjustable collar which rotates all the way around the lens body, and that makes it very smooth for when you want to rotate from portrait. You're rotating of course on the lens, you're mounting this unit via the lens, not via the camera. So you can turn the whole camera around from portrait to horizontal simply by rotating on the collar, and that means you're not having to remount the camera going vertical, horizontal. That's actually quite brilliant. I love that system. So that's actually pretty cool. And the lock, by the way, just so you understand that, the locking is actually feeling very smooth and fluid. It's not graty or in any way awkward. Everything about this lens operates quite beautifully and smooth. It feels very professional. I like the fact that it weighs just over a kilo. I think it's 1.3 or something like that kilo. And for me, you know, anything around that weight factor is doable to carry around. In fact, it's only a little bit heavier than the 105. 1.4 I used to carry around as an F mount, or the Sigma 135 1.8. They're always only a little bit less than this, so I found that this is quite useful. It's practical, comfortable to carry, and doable to bring with you. The other lens, for example, I was mentioning, the 200 to 400, was almost impossible to bring anywhere that you wanted to just carry it in case. It was something that was specific only. You would only bring it out if you knew you were actually going to need that focal range. That meant it was very heavy in the camera bag and consumed most of your camera bag, and you didn't have a lot of other choices, particularly for weight. You didn't want to put anything else in your camera bag but that lens. This one here, I found I can carry this all day and it's no issue. Even on a portrait shoot where you're changing positions and moving around quite a lot and walking quite a distance perhaps, you find that it's no effort at all to have in your camera bag or even to hold in your hands for the entire day. So this weight factor was a big relevance to my choosing this lens. I actually sold the 200 to 400 to buy this, and believe me, there wasn't much change in amongst the two. I think I sold the 200 to 400 for $3,500, and I purchased this for about $3,500 Australian. So it was pretty much an exchange and a swap. Now, of course, I know the focal lengths aren't the same. You might say, well, you're losing quite a lot going from only up to 200 mils. But the thing you've got to consider is Nikon have a 2x teleconverter, which I hear rumour that it's extremely high quality. Unlike the old teleconverters of old where you lost quite a bit of quality, this one apparently retains at least 95% of the quality. The autofocus and all the other features seem to, I'm told, work perfectly well. I am looking at getting that teleconverter when it's available. I think I've still got about a week before it's available to purchase. And then when I have that, then I've still got that range of up to 400 millimeters, haven't I? 2 times. So yes, I might lose a bit of light, but consider that even though I lose 2 stops of light, this is already a 2.8, not an f4 standard as the other one was. So I'm only losing 1 stop of light, which is really insignificant with the mirrorless system because you've got great ISO flexibility anyway, and that internally in the camera it reduces a lot of the noise. I also have a lot of lighting with me, and I do bring lighting and use it. So the stop of light really isn't the big deal at all. So I think for the fact that the weight saving is so huge, you're saving about 2 kilos of weight just via the lens. That's definitely worth the maybe minor inconvenience of having to use a teleconverter. But consider this, now I'm only bringing 1 lens to do both portraits and to do sports action wildlife. I don't have to bring 2. And that means, of course, you've got not only the weight saving, space saving in the bag, but it's just less gear to carry around. I mean, the little teleconverter is not much bigger than the FTZ adapter, so it's quite modest in size and small and no burden at all. So for me, for my personal use and my scenario, this lens here is a much better functional arrangement for me than that 200 to 400 was. So I think this is going to be very versatile with the teleconverter. I can use it for portraits, I can use it for landscape and animal wildlife, and I think it's going to be a great option to have both of these. Now, just as a little side point on it, you'll see here that I'm using, I've got to show you here the darkness, you'll see I have a reverse circular polarizer, on it, but it's an 82. Now, why have I got an 82 on it? Well, it's simply because I use the 77 quite a lot, 77mm filters I have, and I have a lot of them, but sometimes I want this one or that one on that lens and the other. I might be doing a combination of video and photos on the day, and sometimes I just can't spare a particular filter. So for example, I have this now 20mm 1.8S lens prime, and that is a 77mm filter. So I can use my 77mm filters on this, or I can use them on the 200. But let me just show you, I do have quite a few of these 77mm filters, so please don't assume that it's just as I didn't purchase them. This is a 77mm filter here, and this is my circular ND. So here I can really tone down the light and darkness when I need to do video. But if I have it on this camera ready for do video, then I haven't got it on this. So that's why I've been using the adapter with the 82mm filters I have, and I just simply use it on this now, and I don't have to worry about stealing the filters from my video use. So that's just a little thing. It's not a big deal, but I just thought I'd run you through why if you see an 82 on it and you think, why is he using 82 filter when it's a 77 filter thread? It's simply because rather than buy multiple filters, it was easy just to use an adapter and the other filters that I have with me. I'm a big fan of filters. I think they're a great idea. I think everybody should have plenty of them. I like the idea of having not only purpose ND filters, like maybe a 16 stop light loss one, but also having a circular polarizer, which I think are brilliant for your photography, and having also the circular ND filter, so you can cut down the light on the fly as you're going, or raise it or lower it quickly as the maybe situations are changing with the weather. That's also a great option. So I have a lot of different filters, but I just don't want to have to buy multiples of those filters if I can avoid it. So these little stepping rings that I'm using here on this one, this is the 77 to 82. I think these stepping rings are a great idea for getting value out of your filters and being able to transfer them from lens to lens and use to use. That's one thing I wanted to talk about, and I'm very pleased with this lens. I just wanted to tell you how awesome I think it is as I use it more often, and particularly when I get my adapter, the 2x teleconverter, I'll do some sample imaging there, and I'll show you through how that's working for me. But I'm very confident because everything to do with this S line of products at the moment has worked flawlessly. So I can't see why it wouldn't be a great option. Now I was talking to you about this 20mm 1.8, which I use for video. A lot of the time I use this mostly for my Ronin S. So when I'm doing a Steadicam shot and moving around, I use the 20mm because it's nice wide angle and I can capture everything in the shot. And if I need to zoom in, I just walk in closer. If I need a wide angle, I just come back a little bit. But it also helps with the smoothness and flow of the video. And it actually is a really awesome lens. It wasn't particularly cheap. I think it was about $1.8 thousand. But it was an excellent buy. I'm very happy with its quality and use. You could of course get a 14 to 24, but then of course you're not getting down to the 1.8 factor, which I like the option of extra light should I need it, and I like the fact that it's a shallower depth of field, so I think the image looks a bit nicer. And if I want 2.8 or f4, of course I can stop it down to that, but it's nice to go as bright as 1.8 and as shallow should I need it. So that's a nice lens, and I just wanted to compliment that. I think it's brilliant. In fact, I haven't found a lens on this new Z S line that I don't like. I'm very pleased with them. Now, apart from lenses, and we've talked a little bit about lenses and filters and caps and so on, I would like to also talk to you about something that's been a subject of controversy. So I'm purchasing very soon the Nikon Z7 II. You may notice now that I don't have a camera in front of me. That's because I'm filming with my Nikon Z7 Series I, the original. And I love that camera. It's fantastic. Harmonizing with this 70 to 200, it was brilliant. It works so well. It's getting, like, I'd say 95% of the photos in focus and sharp every time. The only reason it doesn't is because it's a longer focal length. Even with image stabilization, if I'm shooting at 200, which is most of the time, I might miss. I'm not quite timing the focus with the movement of the subject or my hands, and it's me missing the eye. It's certainly never the lens doing anything wrong. I've noticed that when I reviewed the images, and I can see that and when I'm actually taking the photos, I can notice that it's me and it's not actually the camera or lens operation. So at 95% success rate, I'm really happy anyway. That's brilliant. I mean, who gets that? That's awesome. I remember taking a photo shoot just recently of a young lady. We did a 40s glamour shot. I'll show you some photo samples of that. And when review of the image, I took about 120 photos, of which 110 were sharp and in focus. And that was inside, outside, bright light, dark, didn't matter. All taken at 200 mils. I spent the whole day just trying it out at 200 mils, doing portraits to see how it looked, and I was really impressed with it. I mean, if you're going to miss focus, you're going to miss it at 200 mils. I didn't. 5% of them might have been out, and I'm sure that was all my fault, not the camera lens combination. So anyway, what I'm going to chat to you about now is in harmony with this talk about the new Z7 II, which I will be purchasing next week. It's not available in this country until I think it's mid-December, so it's about a week away. And I've already got the money organised and put away for it, so as soon as it's available, I'll snatch one up. And then of course I can run you through that and do some sample comparisons even with the older Z7 and now the new one. Now, what do I like about this new Z7 that's interested me? Well, the new Z7 Mark II is interesting. I like the way they've used the Mark II idea, or version 2, because really 2 symbolises everything that's different. It's 2 because it now has 2 processors. It's a 2 version because it has 2 card slots, and it's a 2 version because there's a functional, usable battery grip with 2 batteries. So if you think about that, there's 2, 2, 2, it's a Mark II, it sort of coincides really well. I find that humorous and a bit amusing, also easy to remember the differences in the camera. So will I get the battery grip? To be honest with you, I don't know. Quite frankly, I can't see any use for it. I use the small rig little grip setup, and I find that fantastic. So I don't need any extra grip use. And as far as batteries go, I have 6 batteries, so I just swap a battery over when I need to. I'm rarely filming for so long that the battery runs out. I can't imagine any time that's ever happened to me, because usually when you're doing video, you're not sitting there just letting it roll on and dribble on forever. You usually stop, start, recompose, stop, start again, and it's usually a couple of minute intervals. There's always a chance to change a battery. So I'm looking forward to that lens, and as I say, when I get it, I'll definitely review it with you, and I'm sure that'll be great. The other thing I want to talk to you about in harmony with that is the idea of the 2 card slots. Now, do I need 2 card slots? Really, no. When I had the D810, before I bought this Z mount camera, that had 2 card slots. And I used to use the second card slot, the SD one, for backup JPEG. So I'd have the primary card, CF card for the RAW files, and then I'd use the SD card for backup and JPEGs. And you know what? I never actually ever needed it. Not one occasion in this 3 years and the everyday use that I was using it did I ever have to fall back on the JPEGs because the main card failed. Now, I hear horror stories where it can happen. I believe it could happen, but it never happened for me. So same with the Z system. The XQD cards and CF Express are even more reliable than the older cards are anyway. I don't believe I'll ever need it. But because it's included, I will use it. I'll throw in one of my SD cards that I have. I have a lot of SanDisk Extreme Pro cards. I'll probably use one of those just as a backup for JPEG, just for the sake that it's there. But it's not really necessary or required for me, but it's an interesting feature. The battery grip, well, I don't know. I'm very comfortable with what I have. Maybe if I feel that there's a use for it in some way, or even like balancing the camera, because this 70 to 200 is a little bit weightier, it might be interesting to add a little weight to the camera to balance the system up when you're holding it. Now, the 2 batteries and that grip might make it feel better in the hand. So that's more of a feel thing, that it would be an advantage rather than the battery factor. But what I would like to talk to you about with cards is card readers, and the fact that people do have a tendency of pulling the cards out of these Z-mount cameras to download their files. And I'm just letting you know that it's totally not necessary. Do I have a means of doing that, pulling the card out and reading it to my computer? Yes. Do I ever use this thing? No. I never use this thing. Look, I don't need to. It's no function to me, even though I bought one just in case. I find that this is a vastly better system. Yes, the simple cable you buy. This is I think it's a USB-C 3 or something like that. It works beautifully, very fast transfer. You plug one into the side of the camera, into the port, one into your computer, whether it be laptop or desktop computer, and download your images there. Download them direct from the camera. You don't need to take the cards out, and of course that guarantees you're less likely to ever damage the card. So I think a lot of people who are concerned and worried about card failure and image failure and so on, having only one card slot, was all about the fact that they were taking the damn cards out and perhaps chancing damaging the card. But if you're using the cable and all you do is plug the cable in, you're never going to damage the card because it doesn't leave the camera. And I want to repeat that. If the card does not leave the camera, if you're plugging it in, plugging it out, plugging it in, plugging it out all the time, you'll find you won't ever damage it. It never gets dirty, worn, or any grot in there. And you're not likely to damage any pins or connections. So best off damaging one of these, which cost like about $7 or something, and throwing that away rather than throwing your expensive cards away or your camera gets in some sort of damage. So as I say, I'm going to repeat that one more time. Leave the cards in the camera. There's no need to ever take them out. Buy the correct cabling, you have the ports in the camera, and just transfer directly from the camera. So that's really all I got to talk about today. As I say, the images are there to view and you see how things went. I must say this is another interesting side point when using the 70 to 200, because it is a little longer and heavier. Yeah, you do find that you might get a bit more wobble. It's a little harder to nail focus. if you're doing it manually. If you're using eye detect, of course, and particularly in the new Z7 II, I believe that's going to be astounding. I'll probably be using that more than pinpointing the focus myself. But I have always had the habit of pinpointing focus myself, and I'm used to it, and I'm very effective at it. But if the eye detect is anywhere near as good as I believe it's going to be in the new camera, then I'll probably just use that and be a lot more confident that focus will be had in the longer lenses anyway. I found it interesting that doing those 40s portrait session and using a couple of shots with the 85mm 1.8, that I found that the 85 was so much easier to get focus, not because of any camera deficiency, and not because of the lens, but because it was just lighter. The lighter the lens, the easier it is to hold and keep still. So that was just an interesting comparison. So I'm never getting rid of my primes. I love using my primes for portrait, and I think they're amazing and really sharp and cool. And of course you can get a bit of a shallower depth of field. Instead of 2.8, you can go down to 1.8, or even with the new lenses 1.2 very shortly, and that'll be awesome. So in the moment anyway, that's my basic summary of everything that's been taking place. I look forward to getting my new equipment, my new camera and teleconverters, and we'll do an upgraded video then, and then I can show you even more stuff that I've been playing with. So have a good day, enjoy your cameras, all the best to you, and have a good evening.